You know his face, you know his music, but who is the man? From the streets to the studio, his raw talent and untold story are set to change the industry. Life's challenges held him down, but now his comeback is just as powerful as his bars. This is Bobby Drew, unfiltered and unstoppable. In 1970, Martha Louise Drew, the seventh of 12 siblings, was finally carving out a life of her own, embracing new opportunities, new experiences, and unexpectedly, new love. Bob Fowler, a dedicated Air Force officer with a charming smile and steady presence, had recently entered her life. What began as a simple relationship soon blossomed into a deep and loving romance. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, filled with laughter, late-night conversations, and dreams of a future together. And on March 17, 1971, Martha received the greatest blessing of all, the birth of her first child, Bobby Fowler Drew, born at the Hampton General Hospital in Hampton, Virginia. Martha cradled her newborn son in her arms, feeling an overwhelming sense of love and purpose. Despite the love that once flourished between Martha and Bob, their relationship was short-lived. Whether it was the demands of his military career or simply the unraveling of their connection, before long, Bob was no longer in the picture, and Martha found herself facing parenthood alone. It wasn't easy, but she was determined to give Bobby the best life possible. Martha took on the challenge of single motherhood with unwavering determination, working tirelessly to provide for Bobby. She spent her days behind the counter working at McDonald's, and she barely had time to rest before heading to her second job as a part-time waitress at a local diner, serving coffee and meals to late-night customers. No matter how long the hours or how little sleep she got, Martha made sure there was always a hot meal on the table for her and her son. Every sacrifice, every aching step was worth it to see Bobby's bright smile and to know he would never go without. As Martha juggled her grueling work schedule, she found comfort in knowing that Bobby was in good hands with his Aunt Willamay. Often she would bundle him up and take him to Willamay's small but cozy apartment in the Lincoln Park section of Hampton, Virginia. The apartment became Bobby's second home, while his mother worked around the clock to make ends meet. There, Bobby spent countless hours with his cousins playing games, sharing meals, getting into trouble, and filling the space with laughter. They sang along to their favorite songs and listened to music that echoed through the apartment, creating memories that would last a lifetime.
Back during the early years, I recall, growing up listening to the music back then, like Patti LaBelle, Aretha Franklin, Gladys Knight. I also recall there was times when I would wake up, and I'll never forget this. The whole household be waking up to people like Casey, who was a DJ back then that would play all the old school classics. And then also I remember times when Soul Train would come on. Now if y'all remember Soul Train, come on now, you remember the classics. They used to play a lot of Stylistics, Isley Brothers, Cameo, just different brands of music as a whole.
The time Bobby spent at his Aunt Willamay's was filled with love, laughter, and the warmth of family.
Yeah, I remember growing up back in those days, we had so much fun. We would literally go out and play stuff like hide and go seek. We would daggone freeze tag, football, anything, boxing, anything that was fun that caught our attention. We would always be in the projects doing something. We'll build up these ramps in the street, jumping on our bicycles like we was dirt bike riders. It was just so much that we would do. We would slap box. It was always something to do back during those times.
But it wasn't always fun and games. There were days when his cousins weren't around and he would wander outside to play alone, only to find himself the target of neighborhood bullies. Some of the older kids in Lincoln Park saw him as an easy mark, taunting him, pushing him around, and making him feel small. He never wanted to worry his mother, knowing how hard she was working, so he kept most of it to himself. But on the hardest days, when the teasing stung the most, he would retreat to a quiet corner of the apartment, where the sound of his aunt's radio played softly and let the music soothe his bruised spirit. Bobby's cousins weren't about to let him be anybody's punching bag. After watching him come home one too many times with his head hanging low, they made it clear that if he didn't start standing up for himself, there'd be even more consequences waiting for him inside, and gave him the ultimatum to fight back or deal with them.
I remember there was also times when we'd be outside at the playground. Sometimes every once in a while, you had the other kids that would come by you and try to challenge you and try to step to you. So there was times when I remember my cousin would say, listen, if you don't go out there and confront those kids, you're gonna have to come home and deal with me. So I didn't want to be the one. I would go out there and confront them and wind up defending myself. So those were the times that you had to face certain challenges growing up during that area. There was always fights breaking out. There was always things happening. So at a young age, it taught me how to stand on my own 2 feet and to do what I needed to do.
Although Bobby didn't like the rough treatment from his cousins, he appreciated it because their tough love was pushing him to toughen up. They showed him how to hold his ground, how to throw a punch if he had to, and most importantly, how to carry himself so nobody would mistake him for weak. As Bobby grew older and entered middle school, he found himself drawn to a new kind of energy, the pulsating beats and electric rhymes of hip-hop, the sounds of Grandmaster Flash, Curtis Blow, Funky 4+1, and the Sugar Hill Gang filled the airwaves, igniting something deep inside him.
Yeah, I remember, check this out. I remember as a little kid, when nobody was at the apartment, I would go into my auntie's room. And lo and behold, my older cousin, I didn't even know back then he was a DJ. So I would go to a lot of his vinyl, just go through it, and I would see people like Grandmaster Flash, Funky 4+1, New Edition, Houdini, all the classic music back then. So believe it or not, that was when I first fell in love with hip hop, because I used to always listen to a lot of this music when I would come by there. And then growing up in a musical family, they would play a lot of these songs back then, R&B, just anybody off the top, you know, Curtis Mayfield, Aretha Franklin, Patti LaBelle. So, you know, digging through the crate, the vinyl, I fell in love with music. And I always said to myself, one day, I'm gonna have something to do with music. I promise you, one day.
Their rhythmic flows and streetwise storytelling spoke to his own experiences, and before long, he was scribbling rhymes in his spare time, on the backs of notebooks, scraps of paper, anything he could find.
Now, in school was a different time. I had developed a group. It was me. It consisted of this other dude named Stanley Barton, who was also a rapper, and he knew how to beatbox. But then I also had this other girl who was my backup beatbox by the name of Gail Lightheart. So during that time in junior high school, there was small battles that took place. So I gained a small little reputation on into the 9th grade freshman year.
Bobby would gain and hold the reputation of being a serious freestyler during his years at Denby High School. Bobby took his craft outside of the school walls and began rapping in the streets, where he became known as a battle rapper to be reckoned with. Although Bobby was one of the best rappers at Reservoir Middle School, high school was going to prove to be a totally different story, as he was going to learn the hard way that he was not the best. As a group of 2 brothers who called themselves the UMCs, or the Universal Mic Controllers, noticed his raw talent and decided to challenge him to an upright battle for the crown.
So we would go around school and we would battle other artists in the hallways, in the lunchroom, the cafeterias. That was during that time. So word got back to us about Fort Eustis when we went on Fort Eustis to perform. We battled this other group called UMC. Now back then, they written all of their songs and they had a style similar to Run DMC. To where I never wrote the song. I always freestyle battle rap. So when we went against that battle that night, it was probably about 15 minutes long. And I think that was the first battle that I actually believe that I lost. That was the first one. But we had a trophy. We had a trophy in there.
After his high school years becoming an adult, Bobby held down a job at the local IHOP where he met co-worker Kirk Fuller, a friend that knew of a local up-and-coming producer. Kirk introduced Bobby to DJ K. Ruff, and from there, music exposure was about to take off to another level.
I used to go to IHOP a lot after work, and I would see Bobby there cleaning or cooking or whatever it was that he had to do at the time, and I never paid him any attention. And then one day I'm at my house and Kirk brings him over to my apartment and introduces us. And I said, oh yeah, I know this guy, he works at IHOP. And Bobby said, yeah, that's me. So when they walked in, the first thing that Bobby noticed was my stereo equipment stacked up to the ceiling, the EQs, the turntables, the microphones, the speakers, the whole nine. And he said to me, do you record music or something? I said, yeah, that's what I meant to. I'm DJ K. Ruff. He said, well, I'm a rapper. Do you mind if I grab your mic real quick? I said, sure, go ahead. So I went over and I put on the instrumental. He grabbed the mic and started freestyling, and immediately I was blown away because his voice was so smooth and so clear, and it blended in perfectly with the music, and he had a rap style that was different from everybody else's. He's bringing his own style. So I looked at Kirk, I said, man, do you hear this guy? This dude has some talent.
Bobby and DJ K. Ruff shared the same passion for music, and K. Ruff, being so impressed by Bobby's voice and vocal skills, immediately pulled out instrumentals from his LPs, handed Bobby the microphone, and began recording as he would cut and scratch on the ones and twos until they completed an entire album. Bobby's popularity took over the Hampton Roads area after recording the hottest track, Let's Do It My Way. It was then when the two established themselves as the group DJ K. Ruff and MC Rock. Their popularity spread like wildfire as they were often invited out to compete in local rap contests and show performances, which they both loved for the same reason, the popularity with the women. With this much popularity with the ladies and his good looks, Bobby knew that it was time for him to spread his wings and move out on his own. He took a bold step by moving into his first apartment. It was a small space, but it was his, and the independence felt like a breath of fresh air. Life wasn't always easy, but Bobby was ready for the challenges ahead. He dove into work, continued to refine his music, and started to build a future of his own, knowing that this was only the beginning of his journey to finding his place in the world. As Bobby tried to find his way in the world, the struggles of life began to catch up with him. The pressure to make a living led him to make some poor choices.
Just getting involved with the wrong people, such as gangs, and every once in a while I sold drugs. I even got locked up for a concealed weapon. But you may say, well, wow, he was really this gangster, or he was this criminal. I was never one to rob anybody. I never shot nobody. It's just I got caught with the wrong people, trying to find myself and who I was. Getting in trouble, being angry at the world and all that.
While incarcerated, Bobby knew that this was not the place that he wanted to be. He witnessed fights, unfair treatment from officers, and even at times using the fighting skills that he learned in his youth to stand up to the inmates that would test his manhood. Time was hard both physically and mentally on Bobby, but somehow he made it through wiser from the hard lesson. After Bobby was released, he quickly realized that the repercussions of his past decisions were far from over. The weight of his mistakes lingered, affecting every part of his life. He lost his apartment, and everything he had worked so hard to build seemed to slip away. The comfort and stability he once had were gone, and he was left to face the consequences of his actions.
Now, challenges in life that I had to face was, there was a time when I was at my lowest. And what I mean, it was hard because I lost what I was supposed to be doing. I lost focus, and circumstances allowed me to where I was homeless. There was times when I was sleeping in my vehicle because I didn't have the money, or at the time I didn't have a place to stay. So circumstances got very real. I'm talking about, you don't know how real it gets to. You don't know where your next meal is going to be. You don't know where your next food is going to come from. You don't know where you're going to lay your head the next day. So those situations, certain things happen to land me in that position, and it was pretty rough. I can't lie, but that was hard times for me. Yeah.
The sense of loss was overwhelming, but deep down, he knew that if he wanted to rebuild, he'd have to face his past, learn from it, and keep pushing forward. 7 months after hitting rock bottom and facing the harsh reality of homelessness, things finally began to look up for Bobby. Slowly but surely, he started saving up enough money to get back on his feet. Eventually, he was able to move to Richmond, Virginia, a fresh start that offered new opportunities. As he settled into his new life, Bobby focused on a dream he'd always had, building his own recording studio. With hard work and a clear vision, he began to turn that dream into a reality. As Bobby's recording studio continued to grow, so did his reputation in Richmond. His talent and dedication to his craft quickly caught the attention of local artists and producers.
He was standing in the studio where a lot of famous musicians have recorded records. Some of the folks, the audio producers and people that were there are people that worked with Justin Timberlake and Missy Elliott and Pharrell. Anyways, it was a unique experience for me to be in that room.
The success he had worked so hard for was finally paying off, and he was building a legacy that would continue to influence the local music scene for years to come. Once again, life was beginning to be fun. Bobby was settled into his apartment, and he was ready to let the good times roll.
There was a time when I developed stability. So I wound up getting my own apartment, settling down. At the time, I was doing my 9 to 5. I would go to work faithfully, and after hard work, I wound up getting my studio. So I had a mini studio, I had a keyboard, I had a turntable, I had my vinyl, I had a sampler, a mixer with a sampler in it, I had my little stereo system, I had my receiver. So I was establishing what I always wanted to establish, which was a mini studio. At the time, one of my boys came through by the name of Charlie. Charlie was a friend of mine, about 6'5". So a lot of times we would take spots, we would take time out the weekends, we would go to certain areas when it pertained to music. We would go look at music equipment downtown Richmond. We would look at keyboards, drum machines. Charlie was just mad cool. Then sometimes we would hit the flea markets and, get a lot of vinyl there. It was always something surrounding music. So Charlie was my boy. Then I met another DJ who was from New York. He was staying in Southside Richmond as well. So we all started linking up pertaining to DJing, Charlie pertaining to DJing and mixing, and me pertaining to my equipment. And that's why I started writing and started getting serious about my craft. So I went from the earlier days, the freestyle battle, to start getting my equipment and actually sitting down, taking it seriously. And that was good, man. it was nice. I can't complain at all.
On his 28th birthday, as he was producing beats in his studio, he was surprised with a visit from DJ K. Ruff and mutual friend Earl Brown, also known as Jack Brown, another local rapper from Hampton.
So when we got to Bobby's apartment, he couldn't hear us at first because he had his music up so loud. So I had to bang on the door like the police. So when he opened the door, he was really shocked and surprised to see both me and Jack Brown there. But we all had a good time. You know, we hung out in the city, went out to eat, and took him to his favorite music spot, which was Mars Music. And at the end of the day, Bobby couldn't thank us enough because he said that was one of the best birthday surprises that he had ever had.
The surprise visit from DJ K. Ruff and Jack Brown made it concrete that Bobby's life in Richmond was promising, and he knew that he was finally back on his feet again. However, even with his life flourishing in Richmond, he had a thought to himself that there was still so much more for him to do, and so he decided to make a move to where the opportunities were even greater, Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta was famous for being the headquarters and home for some of entertainment's biggest businesses and names. Jermaine Dupri with So Def, Tyler Perry Studios, Creflo Dollar Ministries, and countless black TV shows and movies. With so many big names and faces and the easy access to contacting them, there was no way that Bobby was going to let this opportunity pass to network and rub elbows with the celebrities to get his foot in the door.
During that time, I started doing a lot of underground shows where I would meet and network with other artists. There was artists that was blowing up called Platinum Souls. There was my homie Ulysses Select, who's now in Florida. He has his own talk show. That was my boy, his name is Darius. I call him Minister Ace. He was a radio DJ, but now he's a millionaire. So I started networking underground, and we exchanged information. We exchanged CDs, and then that's when we started performing a lot underground, to where I met people like Canton Jones, who was signed to Arrow Records. He's now a successful artist. I met Lexi, who's a successful artist, Platinum Souls, and a lot of other artists in that area.
But one of Bobby's biggest and proudest moments was when he worked alongside of no other than Christopher Play Martin of the legendary hip-hop duo Kid and Play.
The way that I met Christopher Play Martin of Kid and Play was we all went to TV 57 in Atlanta, where there was a show that was taking place called Cynthia and Friends. Every week she would have different artists, different actors, different singers, performers come in. They would do their songs, they would talk about their shows, and that's how I met Play from House Party, Christopher Play Martin. He's very down to earth, and we talked about music, we talked about our passion, and it was just a great experience to be put in a position to meet successful artists like themselves. And I just took all my information and I just ran with it, and it was an awesome time.
With this kind of exposure and mixing with some of the biggest names in hip-hop, Bobby's name itself became associated with those names. And because of that, he was often booked to do shows and performances at many of the Atlanta venues. With packed performances and unique microphone skills, Bobby's name began to spread even further. It wasn't long before he began getting calls to perform along the East Coast, Georgia, North Carolina, Baltimore, Maryland, and DC, just to name a few. It was there in DC where Bobby was performing when female hip-hop pioneer MC Lyte was in the midst to enjoy the performances.
I was at a hip-hop expo in DC enjoying the show, and all the performers were good, but a lot of them were rapping over instrumentals of popular rap songs. So when this one track started, I paused and started nodding my head because it was an original. That's when Bobby stepped out with the mic in his hand and just started ripping the mic like no one else. I mean, he came out there with the presence that just owned the whole room. It wasn't even 5 minutes into his set, and I was already leaning forward, nodding my head like, who is this dude? His flow was clean, sharp, and had this gritty truth to it that gave me chills He performed, like really performed. You could feel it in your chest when he hit those punchlines and the way he moved across that stage. When he was done and walked off stage, I was trying to sign him, so I made my way backstage and was looking for him, but they told me that he had just rolled out. I was like, dang, I just missed him. I was kind of upset about that because he had the kind of talent that I was looking for, something fresh, new, and original.
Bobby, yeah, I met Bobby quite a while ago. I met Bobby. He's been recording in some of the best recording studios in the country. That's where I met him. He was working in a great studio with some great people. And anyways, what really drew me to him was watching him writing lyrics. And there were producers and other people in the room that were changing things as he was working. And for me to write a song, it can take months, it can take years, and he has that gift, that talent, where he can just write right there in the moment.
So one thing that I could say about Bobby is that his originality is really off the chain. And if you're not careful, he will beat you at your own game. Like, I remember one time he came to my studio to record because I had laid down his dope, hardcore, gangster style beat that was so hard that if you heard it, you would just want to go outside and just smack somebody just because. But Bobby heard the beat and I said, listen, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to do a verse and you're going to do a verse. And what we're going to do is take one word and make our entire verse rhyme off of that one word. So he said, okay, bet, give me a piece of paper and a pen. And so about 15 minutes later, I said, I'm done. He said, yeah, me too. So I get up and I start the beat and Bobby's up first. And he came in with some dope lyrics. He came in with something like, no disrespected, keep corrected, perfected, selected, manifested, tested, studio directed, no misconcepted, birth defected, slept it, smacked it, hacked it, jacked it, packed it, macked it, whacked it, shacked it, vandalized the rhymes, quick, missed the slip bit, lit it, trick, like a do-it-yourself kid, no, lit trick, hit scandalous bit, the method. I'm like, oh my gosh, he just ripped it. And I knew at that point I could not even grab the mic after him. So what I did with my own rhymes, I did this. Bobby, you got it, man. You got it. That man made me look bad at my own game. Now who does that?
As Bobby's music gained traction, it wasn't long before his tracks started making waves on local radio stations. His unique sound and undeniable talent caught the ears of listeners, turning his name into a household favorite. Requests for his music began pouring in, not just from Atlanta, but from cities across the country. Stations in Baltimore, Philadelphia, Savannah, and even as far as LA were spinning his hits. What started as a dream had turned into a movement. And Bobby knew that his hard work and dedication had finally paid off. Bobby's world seemed to unravel. His once thriving career, full of promise and recognition, began to slow down drastically. The music industry, which had once been his stage, seemed to move on without him. And the opportunities that once came easily were no longer there. The weight of his personal life and the fading of his professional dreams took a toll on him. With little left to hold on to in Atlanta, Bobby made the difficult decision to move back to Hampton. He found himself starting over, working a job at the local Walmart, a far cry from the life he had once known. It was a humbling experience, and Bobby couldn't help but reflect on how quickly things had changed.
You know, even with all the success that Bobby was having in Atlanta, he was about to come full circle because I got a call from him one day telling me that he was moving back to Hampton. And I said, why would you do that? Because you're having so much success down there. Why would you want to come back to Hampton where there's absolutely nothing going on? He began telling me that so many record companies, so many managers, and so many producers were taking advantage of him. You like trying to cheat him out of contracts, trying to cheat him out of money that they owed him, and not paying royalties and things of that sort. And it was beginning to weigh on him. He couldn't take it anymore because this had been going on for a while now, and he needed a way to escape that. So that's why he decided to move back to Hampton after finding out that he could not work it out with the managers and producers down there in Atlanta.
I just felt that we just needed a break. If it can't be worked out, if we're not willing to work it out, then I have to pack my bags and move back to Virginia. So that's what I decided to do. It was a rough period, but yeah.
As Bobby decided to move back to Hampton once again, feeling like life had come full circle, his phone rang with an unexpected call. On the other end was none other than national recording artist Everett "Blood" Hollins, who had previously recorded under the MCA and Strange Fruit record labels. Bobby almost thought it was a prank until Everett hit him with, "Man, I need you on my next recording." That phone call alone made the move back to Hampton worth the while. The opportunity was too big to pass up. Bobby had spent years grinding, and now one of the industry's heavy hitters was calling on him. It was the kind of moment he had been waiting for. Proof that no matter how many times life knocked him down, his talent would always bring him back to the top.
Now, by this time, okay, I'm in Hampton and I'm making things happen independently. I'm still writing music. I'm utilizing the things that's social media. I'm utilizing outlets. I'm utilizing open mics, anything that's possible. So there's a friend of mine who reached out to me and he said, "Man, I would really love to put you on a song that I'm working on." And this brother at the time he's pronounced Edward Blood Hollins. Now, Edward Blood Hollins is this guy who was signed back in the days. He worked with people like Aretha Franklin, Patti LaBelle. He worked with some of the big timers, and he's also known as being a jazz musician. So I worked with him behind the scenes, watching him put together a praise and worship CD where I met some of the singers live and been in different studios with him. This one particular time, he asked me to be on this song. I said, okay, but he didn't give me the time frame I needed. Normally to do a good song, I need about 2 or 3 days to have time to marinate on the song and to write it. Less than 24 hours, I'm in the same studio with Missy Elliott, Pharrell, Timberland, all these greats recorded before me. I'm in that studio and he's like, okay, what do you got? And I'm like, what do I got? Okay. So I sat down right there. Less than 15, 20 minutes, I had a song wrote, went into the studio vocal booth and we laid it down. And I can't put too much out there, but it's going to be a big hit. I'm just going to say it was a blessing to be inspired and be in the greatness in the studio such as Missy Elliott, Timberland, Pharrell, the Neptunes, just being around people, the producers that had a part in that project, and Mr. Hollins. So I don't take nothing for granted. Music has always been my DNA. It's always been with me wherever I went.
After recording the track with Everett "Blood" Hollins, Bobby found himself connecting with another industry veteran, Bill Miles. What started as a simple introduction quickly grew into a strong rapport built on a shared passion for music and a deep respect for the craft.
Hey, I'm Bill Miles with the Bill Miles Band, and I'm a country music songwriter. I was introduced to Bobby by Everett Hollis, Blood Hollis, who's a fabulous horn player who played with a lot of really famous people back in the day, and he introduced Bobby to me.
Bill saw Bobby's talent and drive, and Bobby appreciated Bill's wisdom and experience in the game. The two spent hours in the studio bouncing ideas, fine-tuning beats, and trading stories about the industry. Before long, their working relationship turned into a genuine friendship, with Bill becoming both a mentor and a trusted collaborator.
I was so happy that I got to meet Bobby that day, and I've listened to a lot of his music. Obviously a different genre than what I play, but an amazing talent, a great songwriter, and someone who has skills to write songs and lyrics just right there on the spot. And I'm sure I'll probably work with him some more. But sky's the limit, and you guys watch Bobby. He's gonna go somewhere.
Bobby's journey has come full circle, yet he remains as driven as ever. Though he now resides back in Hampton, he's never far from the pulse of the industry. Keeping in contact with industry executives, Bobby continues to produce fresh, new music that reflects both his growth and his passion. He showcases his work on platforms like YouTube, Rumble, and Reverb Nation, reaching a wide audience and staying connected with fans who have followed his career from the very beginning.
As of now, as you can see, I'm working on new projects, always writing, always being open to network. I worked with people in the past from Ulysses Select, Minister Ace, Darian, Carlton Ruffin of Elite Force Productions, Lexi, Play. There's so many people that I've worked with in the industry, independent as well as professional. So right now, some of the things that I'm working on is some new CDs on my Rumble page. I'm also located on Bobby Drew at ReverbNation.com. And I also just want to keep loading up great music for the world to be inspired by.
Every now and then, he connects with DJ K-Ruff to collaborate on new projects, fusing their unique styles and giving fans the music they crave.
I've met Bobby in my late teens, early 20s, and I find it absolutely amazing how even kids today, after all of these years, over 35 years later, kids today are still dancing to our music. And I don't think that the music would have been as successful without Bobby's voice on it, or at the time MC Rocks. So I was on YouTube the other day, and I came across a YouTube short where there's an Asian girl dancing to our music that we did 30 some years ago. Why You Treat Me So Bad. And you know, it's a great feeling for me, and I'm sure to Bobby as well, to know that even after all of these years, our music still has the impact on the younger generation, and that we are able to reach the young generation through our music.
Why you treat me so bad? I don't know why you act this way. Why you treat me so bad? Why you do all the things you do? Why you treat me so bad?
But more than just making music, Bobby has taken on a new mission, one that's close to his heart. He strives to inspire anyone facing hard times, sharing his story as a reminder that no matter how tough the road gets, dreams can still be realized. Through his music, his words, and his actions, Bobby's message is clear: never give up. And of course, through all his success and struggles, Bobby makes sure to show his mother, Martha, the love and gratitude she deserves. After all, she's the one who gave him the strength to keep pushing forward, no matter the obstacles.
So the purpose really and foremost for this documentary is I wanted people to hear the other side of me. People heard some of my music. People may have heard some of my previous struggles, but today I wanted people to understand what it's all about. Sharing my story with the world, it means so much. So no matter what you're going through in life, you can be inspired by greatness as long as you put God first, and you can accomplish all your dreams and your goals. So I just wanted to tell y'all, be inspired. Till next time, holla back.
Baby, baby, you drive me crazy. Baby, baby, you drive me crazy. Yo, let me tell you what it's
it's all about bringing the facts. Keep it real in the battlefield for gospel rap. So sit back, relax, don't get thrown off track. Let me tell you what it is and keep your mind intact. From the east to the west coast, gotta give a dose, keep it locked and tuned. Turn it up on your radio, no matter where you come from or copycats. Got the spirit of the Most High who got your back. Beat boys and pop locks, bloods and crips. You're fighting over turf, but you know what it is. We are lost in the storm by Chubb Rock, the beat not. Hold it in the streets, even back to Fort Knox. I know you feel my swag with the pain and jewels. The pain in my life and everything that I've been through. Overcome by the blood of the Lamb, the great I am. Victory is mine, don't be acting crazy. You got caught up in the game, then it held you back. Don't nobody really care when you're down and out. The facts still remain to them. You're just a cop out.
This is God's home, and I'm the pastor, most likely to be fired. Still wear the clothes I wore to the bar last night. When I get there, I'll add a coat and an old ring tie. I'm the pastor, most likely to be fired. Pastor, most likely to be fired.